the future I would like to live in is where you have more small businesses really serving customers with great intensity and passion than these mega companies. Now, the reality is we might all end up working for OpenAI, and that could be a future that's kind of like available to materialize. It's just not a world that I kind of hope.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the AI Download. We are your weekly recap at the world of AI so you can keep up with all of it. And also, I'm bringing you access to all the heavy hitters in this space because I've been in digital culture for 2 decades. So I know a lot of people, including our next guest. And by the way, I'm your host, Shira Lazar. First up, a huge thanks to our sponsor, Hivelator, AI that can read any article and get you the best highlights from your unique perspective. Go to hivelator.ai to get started today. Now, today on the AI Download, I'm joined by Henrik Werdelin, serial entrepreneur, co-founder of BarkBox, and now the founder of Audos, a new venture helping everyday people build million-dollar businesses using AI. He's also the author of the upcoming book, Me, My Customer, and AI, dropping August 5th. And it's already getting love from people like Reid Hoffman and Shopify's Harley Finkelstein. I mean, huge. We talk about how AI is changing the entrepreneurial playbook, how to know if your business idea is actually worth pursuing, and why Henrik believes the future belongs to Donkeycorns. Yes, you heard me, Donkeycorns, not unicorns. If you've ever thought, I want to start something, but I don't know where to start, and how do I do it with AI? This episode's for you. Henrik, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on and helping me spread the Donkey Kong words. It's all
Yes.
about companies. They grind like mules, but they party like unicorns.
I mean, I love that. It's a new phrase. I'm into it because I feel like I've always been like a donkey. Oh, that sounds really weird. And I want to get into what it means. It sounds like maybe an insult, but it isn't. It's actually the future. In many ways, you could be a solopreneur. A lot of creators are creatorpreneurs. You're a donkey corn, is that right?
Well, we like the Donkey Kong because it's really tried to define like this new asset class of companies built on top of AI that kind of aims to be $1 million turnover business with two people or less. And so it's a way to try to reframe like what a mom and pop store might look like in like the 21st century.
So I guess what's the pre-AI donkey corn? I think that's what I've been.
The thing that we are very inspired by, I kind of like your small companies, your neighborhood companies. But I think neighborhood really meant that you were kind of a retail store around the corner. And now for us, neighborhood companies are really about somebody who understands a really small affinity group. And then they have the authority and the authenticity to build something for them. And so think of it as kind of a neighborhood as your subreddit.
Okay. I wanna get into this because it's really fascinating. I think it's gonna help a lot of people who, one, are in transition. There's the anxiety of losing their job. It's already happened maybe, and they're just, like, wanting to prep for the future. So, let's put a pause on this part, because we've known each other for many years, and it was really hilarious because we were covering your story. You got covered by everyone when you announced this. We covered it on the AI download, the fact that this company is helping 100,000 businesses using AI. Then I look at the name of the founder. I'm like, wait a second, I know this guy. And lo and behold, I don't just say I know people to say it. It's usually true. Okay. But I go in my email and there you are. We haven't connected in many years, but you actually had emailed me about your book. And so this is how this happened. Just saying. So
There
I,
you
I
go.
appreciate I appreciate being
Go
connected to you
way
after all these
back.
years.
Go way back.
Exactly. But you've had such an amazing career. So you actually, I mean, you obviously haven't been in AI for a long time. I mean, were you, because you're promoting your book in June. Does this mean that your company Autos, like, did this just happen? Because I feel like a lot of people are coming up with amazing ideas and they're saying, we're going to launch it now. We're going to plant our flag now. How quickly did you launch this idea?
I wish we were just, that quick, but, no, we've had this company called Prehive for a long time, which I guess for most people look like a studio, product studio. We were really the background story is that I, was part of a company that sold to Facebook in about 2010, and then I didn't really know what to do next. It's kind of this in between time that a lot of founders are in, and I didn't really wanna go back to venture. I didn't wanna go to just the coffee shop by myself, and I didn't want to corporates, and so I basically rented out this loft in Chinatown, and then I convinced everybody else. So it became kind of this halfway house for entrepreneurs. And out of that, we built over the last 15 years a bunch of companies, and some of them we're fortunate enough became big ones. So come 2000,
BarkBox,
huh? Yeah, BarkBox.
like dark.
I took public in 21. I ran that with my 2 co-founders. And kind of after that, when that went public, I got access to OpenAI and got obsessed about, can we use all these new AI tools to make it much easier for people who are non-technical to build basically a tech startup. And so we've been tinkering on this for a while, but announced it last Friday.
How would you describe Autos?
Well, Audos is a program for people who would like to start something, but they don't really know where to start. And so what we help them do is to figure out who they want to serve. We try to figure out what that affinity group that they want to serve, what problems they have. We then help them identify what a business opportunity could be. We then help them communicate and connect with audience. We help them make ads. We help them make the product. We help finance the whole thing. And so it's kind of like I guess what YouTube in many ways was for people who wanted to be a little media empire, but you know, before like YouTube, you really had to work for one of the majors, and so we're a little bit like that, but for entrepreneurship.
So, yeah, YouTube is like content creation in a box in a way, like, upload, distribution, etcetera, and then, yeah, you're a business in a box using AI.
Exactly right.
Okay, that's really cool, and needed today, and definitely, I think it hits a nerve because as we were covering your story the other week, it came off of another story from Salesforce talking about how you know uh, over 50% or something. Maybe I'm not getting the exact number, but like a huge percent of their workforce is going to be AI. Right? We're dealing with this digital workforce revolution, and while that seems exciting, it's also really scary to a lot of people. So in a way, when I pivoted to your story, it was like, there's hope. You can take control of your destiny. Is that how it feels like in launching this in a way? Like you're really giving the humans some optimism into the
Yeah, I mean,
future?
like, I there's obviously enough in this world to be frustrated about, and so and I believe that the best way to predict the future is to make it, and the future I'd like to make is positive, and I've been very fortunate to have a career as an entrepreneur, and I think a lot of other people would like that. In fact, 60% of Americans say they would like to start something and probably could, but only 9% end up doing it. And so there's this kind of like interesting gap between kind of like the motivation of doing it and then actually get going. And it's difficult, you need access to capital and technology, and a lot of people just don't know where to start. And so what we hope to do is to kind of make that much easier than it's been in the past.
Yeah, so let's talk about how it works. If I was going to go to your site, autos.com, I have an idea. Like, what happens? What does that look like?
Well, you talk to an agent, AI agent that will basically walk you through what is our pedagogy of entrepreneurship. And that is anchored in who is somebody you'd like to serve. And like, what is a customer group that is interesting for you? That's kind of where we are. A lot of the people, they start with market sizes or with technology. We always start with who do you want to serve? And if you look at some of the companies I've been involved building, you can see that, for example, BarkBox, we wanted to serve people who love dogs as much as their kids, and that was our core focus. And the type of business we then built was many products and services for that specific customer group. So we launched the box first, that most people know. And the next business wasn't kind of like a cat box because we didn't define ourselves as somebody who puts stuff in a box. It was an airline for dogs because we connect with people who love their dogs and want to treat them as children. And so, in the same way, that pedagogy is what we follow at Autos, where we basically have this thing called the 5 Ps, which is a way for us to figure out what is something that might, get you excited for the next 10 years. And then we go through like this kind of, I guess, pretty lengthy process of um, figuring out when the customer is, finding a problem, figuring out what an agent could be that would solve this problem, making ads for it, putting ads out there, getting customers through, talking to customers, and like the whole shebang about how you make a business. But what we do is we have autonomous agents that help you through every step of that process. So hopefully it doesn't become as daunting and more people can do it.
Whoa. And so you've had 100,000 or you wanna help
We
100,000
wanna help
businesses?
100,000. We probably have, in the 1,000 people come through now. We have, hundreds of shops now kind of operating on it. That was kind of before we went public last Friday. We've been quite overwhelmed with the interest, but the goal is to help 1,000,000 people, build a company, and so that's our long-term goal, and, I think when, you've been in media for a long time, if somebody said they wanted to make a platform where tens of thousands, 100,000s of TV channels would emerge, people go like, "What do you mean?" Like, you know, there's only 5 big ones, but then obviously YouTube comes around, and then suddenly you have hundreds of thousands of channels, and so I think in many ways, we're kind of just trying to replicate that democratization of that technology have facilitated for a lot of other industries. You've seen that with Airbnb and hospitality, you've seen that with Shopify and e-commerce and a lot of other ones, and so we think it's natural now that AI allow more people to do more things, that you can do that with kind of more classic entrepreneurship.
My big question coming out of that is, is it possible for this many businesses to exist, right? Do we need this many businesses?
No, I think it's a good question. I think a lot of this is kind of what is the future you'd like to live in, right? And I think in many ways, the future I would like to live in is where you have more small businesses really serving customers with great intensity and passion than these mega companies. Now, the reality is we might all end up working for OpenAI, and that could be a future that's kind of like available to materialize. It's just not a world that I kind of hope we live in. And so I'm perfectly sure that Sam Altman is right that there'll be a one person unicorn kind of like coming down the track. I just would rather to make kind of hundreds of thousands of companies having a thousand and sharing that kind of like wealth creation with 100,000 people. And so we build that and we do that and we can obviously talk about that a little bit later when we talk about the book. But we also have like this kind of pretty strong thesis that when you are building something in an age of AI, when everybody can build everything and products or service are basically going to be something that you could vibe code yourself to, then you need a moat. And the moat that we think will be kind of standing in the age of AI is what we call relationship capital, which is basically what is the strength between the founder and the customer they serve. And that emotional connection, that relationship capital is something that we think AI will take a while to kind of do. And because of that, we think that you might see a long tailification in the same way that we saw on YouTube with businesses. So if you want to serve somebody who um, needs to get back in shape because they've just had a child, or somebody who runs a gardening business, then somebody who runs a gardening business in Kansas is going to look different than somebody who runs a gardening business in Alaska. And so instead of just having one gardening business that rules them all, we hope that you'll have entrepreneurs in those local markets that will serve the customers in those markets.
I love this thesis because I agree. This idea that as an individual, you need to be successful or a company by being a multi-billion-dollar company. It's possible, obviously, now, but I feel like we need to shift our view of success. Like, you could be successful and build a business without that. And I love what you're saying. This model, I feel like it does give people hope, which is needed. Of like, there's a new vision of success that's
Yeah, and I
possible,
think and
and
I
that's
think that is a
accessible.
and it's not a new one to replace it. I mean, like, I built a unicorn company and is very proud of it, but I think that we should celebrate when somebody builds a business that does hundreds of thousands of dollars in turnover, or $1,000,000 in turnover. Like, could you imagine, like, having, like, being a person or 2 and you do $1,000,000 turnover and most of it is EBITDA? Like, I mean, like, that's just an incredible business that I think most people would be very excited about. And so it's almost like we're poo-pooing this thing and calling it a lifestyle company like it's a bad thing. Now, the reality is if you look at small entrepreneurship, if you look at mom and pop style, that's the backbone of America. That is what we're proud about. That's what we've done for many, many, many years. And then I think there's been this period where we've been like very focused on like only these kind of decacorns, worthy of anything, which just don't think is true.
And I also love what you talk about in terms of is it relational capital or emotional capital? So it's like understanding your customer, your why in many ways that drives you, and then having that influence. And influence, I believe it in many ways should be redefined. I think we've gotten so lost in influence being an influencer or having this mass following on social media when you could be that person in your local community that gets people together, every week or really knows in your community like this one need and you know it so well and everyone goes to you for that. And that's valuable. And I do agree that it will be even more valuable, especially in the age of automation.
Yeah, 100%. We call it relationship capital. It basically, we have three ways of thinking of influence. We have basically depth, or the intimacy layer, which is basically how much do your customer feel seen by it, right? Influence have this kind of idea that it's a broadcast channel, but the reality is that real influence not is how many people you can talk to, is how many people talk back, and how many people then feel seen when you talk back to them, right? And so that's metrics of like how quickly do you answer, how much engagement do you have amongst your followers and the customer you serve. Then we have what we call density of the community layer. How much is you or the brand that you represent kind of part of the fabric of your community? Like when people train in Lululemon, like it says something about people. Or when they, like rock whatever kind of brand they feel like really stands for it. And so that's, I think, really about how do you get into and become not just kind of like a brand that talks to people, but a brand that's kind of part of it. And the third thing is what I call durability, or the resilience layer, which is how much permission do you have to offer a new product? So I think that you will see that the half lifetime of products and services are going to be shorter and shorter. It's going to be so easy to code things that once somebody has a feature, everybody else can get that feature. And so, what I think you'll have to do to maintain the relationship and keep growing your business is to build new things. Like, same thing, like use BarkBox as an example. We launched an airline, right? Like, it's pretty far from dog toys and treats and other things that we're serving. But because people knew who we were and how much we cared about dogs, we had the permission to go in and do an airline. Like, you can imagine what a Nike hotel is, but it's very difficult to think about what a Hilton shoe would be, right? Like there's just some brands that have like that durability and some of that. And so these three layers are basically what we believe will be what will create the moat in the age of AI.
And then you mentioned, and I'm just curious, even though I had other questions to get to right now, but it keeps on staying in my head. These 5 Ps that you determine, or like that you, when you look at the companies, like kind of this filter. Is it the 5 Ps?
Yeah, we call it 5 Ps. It's powers, it's possessions, it's passions, it's positions, and it's potentials. And so each of those things tells something about you, or is some kind of, let's call it, built up energy that you already have. Like a lot of people, when they start a business, let's say that we were talking about a new business that we can launch together, because you've been a media person for a long time, you'll naturally go like, oh, I should do something in media. But you might be like a fantastic runner, or you might be somebody who does. I have a friend the other day. He's doing something completely different, and then suddenly he told me about how much he knows about dinosaurs. I was like, "You should do something about dinosaurs. Like that's the thing, right?" And so by going through those 5 Ps, we can help people figure out where is it that they have built up kind of kinetic energy that they will allow to turn that would allow them to turn that into something that would resonate with a customer group.
So you're not just helping build the business, you're like almost a coach, like a
Yeah, I mean,
business
like,
coach, entrepreneur coach.
entrepreneur coach. I'll take that.
I mean, is that what's happening? Are you going in saying, "I have this idea," but then you're going through this process with, the customers of Autos? So if
Yeah,
I'm a customer of
100%.
Autos, I'm like,
In
is
fact,
that what's happening?
we prefer people that don't have an idea yet. I think a lot of people, they
Oh.
go very fast to the idea, and then they get very focused on that idea, and the problem is that if you have an idea and you disprove it really fast, it's very frustrating. So what I find to be like the hack to that is what you really need to find is a problem. If you find a really good problem, then ideas are just thesis statements. And so we have this kind of frame we call "it sucks that." And so anything that you can kind of like follow by "it sucks that" is a really good meaty problem that if you feel that that is something that you would pay for, somebody else sold for you, then there's probably tens or 20,000 of people that would do the same.
Do you still need passion and all this stuff? Like, you as an individual, like, you can have an idea for "it sucks that," but then are you the right person to create that business?
I think that's a very good question. And I think that's why if you can answer that and you feel something when you say it, and the people that you will serve by solving that problems is somebody that you can be bothered talking to on a Sunday in 6 years, I think then you're on the way. I know many, many people who started businesses that sounded good, but the reality is that they didn't really like those people that they were serving. And then, you need a lot of intensity to get this to work, and the only way I think to get disproportionate amount of intensity into what you do is to just really love it, like, you just really wanna do it every day. And so, if you have a brother or sister with a handicap of a specific disease, like, this is a problem that you really want to solve. Like, if you have something like I in full disclosure, love padel tennis, which is this kind of European Eurotrashy thing. There's a net, but there's glass walls on the back. It's the fastest growing sport in Europe, and it's hilarious. And I love, love, love that sport. And so I would spend so much time and energy on doing something in that space that probably I could beat anybody because I sit there and research stuff in that space all the time.
Okay. No, that definitely makes sense, and I do love your approach and how you're presenting this because I feel like anyone listening or watching, it's one of those mind blown moments of like, oh, okay, this makes sense, and something is possible here for me. So I want to get into the model because you're not necessarily you're not taking equity like a traditional accelerator. I mean, is this even considered an accelerator or a service, or do
I don't
people pay
know.
monthly to use it?
I don't
You
know what
take
it's
a
called.
revenue share.
Yeah, we obviously, as everybody else in the entrepreneurial space, making shit up as we go along. But here's like our core thesis as we go out. So we will invest into these ideas, and we will invest by putting money against advertising or money against product development, and in return, we're asking for a royalty or an revenue share, like Apple does when you put something on their app store. So we take a 15% royalty, and we do that as long as you're on your platform, but we don't take any equity. And if you want to bounce, like, there's no kind of like ownership of the idea. So if you want to bounce from the platform and do it somewhere else, like we wish you to go your merry way. And we do this because honestly, we don't think a lot of these companies will be sold. Like, it doesn't really matter to have equity.
Yeah, it takes too long to get that money back, and then at least you're more in a profitable place than just like giving your money away and then waiting.
Yeah, and honestly, like, there's this other thing, like, we were thinking about what business model would be best for us, and I think, you take the Shopifys and the Squarespace of the world. What they do is they take a monthly fee, and that's kind of the most obvious thing to do. But I don't want to build a model where it kind of like gears me towards a predatory model. So if I was charging the founder money, then if I want to grow my revenue, I would come up with other ways of charging the founder money. What I like is this kind of phrase that we have internally called structures defined outcomes. And if the structural kind of process for my business is that I make money every time that the founders we serve make money, then I will do everything I can for them to make money. And so that's kind of like the model that we've gone with in order to make sure that honestly that we can keep our integrity and make sure that we're always on the side of the founders.
Feel like you have a phrase for everything. It's really amazing. I'm always jealous of folks like you, like, you do presentations and you're like, "This word, the PPP, the 5 Ps, this, the that," like, you're on
It's
top
me
of
it's
it.
it's me to go with ChatGPT for way too long.
Did ChatGPT help you with these things?
I
No,
mean,
I mean,
like,
you're
ChatGPT
great
helps
at
me with
frameworks.
anything.
Clearly, you know what you're talking about, but, like, it's
I'm
these
a
prescriptive
dyslexic
frameworks
Bane.
that are
I
so
don't do
great.
anything without ChatGPT.
I mean, you need it in the future, you'll have it in your brain, so you're just, like,
Yeah, exactly.
speaking it. No, that would be weird, but, maybe it's
I
gonna
I
happen.
read somewhere that somebody says that in the future, a business will only be a person and a dog, and the person is there basically to make sure that the AI agents have ethics, and the dog is there to make sure that the human doesn't bother the agents.
But that's hilarious, or it doesn't go crazy like a therapy dog.
Exactly.
I could see that. So, because this is an AI show, I guess let's talk about how AI is used throughout this process and, already some maybe, successes that you're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the success that we see is that we get people from nothing to something really fast. Our record right now for somebody coming in completely blank, not knowing what they wanted to do, and seeing their first revenue, I think is 5 days. And so, and this is something that normally took us, like 3 or 4 months to do. And so we're excited about trying to just see how do we do that. Now, the system is early, right? And so we're laying down the tracks as fast as we can. And there's a bunch of things that kind of like breaks all the time, and then we throw humans at it to kind of like see if we can fix it. Um, so I think that what we hope is to get a bunch of people in who are curious about making something and then want to make it with us, and then we'll kind of evolve the platform together. Like, for example, one thing that I've been thinking about lately that we don't have is what happens if you have all these hundreds of thousands of Donkeycorn type of founders? How do you create camaraderie and community? Like, where's the Christmas party going to be? Like, where's the holiday party? And so then we're like, okay, how do you create like community and social interaction? How do you make sure that mental health is taken care of? And like, so I think as we are building this, we'll have all these different kind of like issues materialize, and then we'll have to figure out how to fix them.
And then that becomes those solutions become models for other people too, and then those could become new businesses. So that's really fascinating. It becomes this ecosystem to build really cool shit, right? But like, how much startup money are each of these businesses needing? By the way, because you just raised 11 million, it seems like you might go through that very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, like, we expect to cut, like, up to $25,000 checks to a lot of these,
Okay.
people, and so that's why we raised the money, to help with that, and then, we've with the traction and the inbound we're having, obviously, if we, need more money, that seemed to be kind of, like, available to us. But I think, like, a lot of these people, they don't necessarily need endless amount of cash because I mean, like, when I started my first business back in London in the early 2000s, like, the first $5,000 I had to find was to buy a Windows NT server, and then I need to find, like, somebody to kinda connect it to the internet. Now, obviously, now you just flick your credit card and AWS have you going, and then when we did BarkBox, we have to do, like, subscription management, but at that time, SaaS software had kinda materialized, and so I think we were using something called Recurly at the time, and again, we swiped the credit card and somebody, much smarter than us and kinda built this kind of very hot technology. And I think now with AI, we're kind of like at the kind of third phase of that, where if you need a logo, well, the AI can help you build that. And instead of then having to kind of sit with a blank piece of paper, we can show you five logos, and you might very well go like, I hate all of these, but at least now we have something as kind of like an object that we can talk about. And we go like, why do you hate this? Well, I'd imagine it should be blue and it should look like a tiger. Well, okay, here's a blue one that looks like a tiger. And so I think all these different things, all these, like thousands of small tasks that you had to do as an entrepreneur, we can now make that much easier and have the founder focus on how will this resonate? How do I create emotional context with the customer that I'll serve? How do I make sure that the flow of this business kind of like is optimized? And much more be an architect than a builder.
And did you, I guess, train the models also on the what you owned, which is the processes of what you build with your incubator and the companies that you built that were successful? Was
100%.
that part
So
of the, training as well?
yeah, so we obviously took all that, and that's everything from, when we put up an ad and we see the click through and the CAC of the click through, we know what good looks like. We have a lot of experience because we've been doing this manually for 15 years, right? And so we have endless amount of that information. And so all these different ones for what does CAC look like? So how do you phrase stuff to what is the advisory that we would normally give to people? And we've been teaching about this and writing books about this. And so a lot of this is just taking all that and then condensing it into agents and then kind of putting them next to each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's super smart and obvious, so congratulations. So, but, the big question, failure rates of starting a business are still high. So the numbers are, 20% of companies fail year 1, 65% by year 10. Do you think AI changes this trajectory?
I don't know, and I'm not sure that it should. I think I would rather have more people doing more shots on goal and figure out what doesn't work. Like my wife, she's a molecular biologist, and she does experiments every day in the lab, and when they don't work, she calls them non-viable. Like, there's not a big emotional thing about it. There's not like a big blog post about like why it didn't work. It's just like she tried something, it didn't work. But it's also very disposable for her. Like she put stuff in a petri dish and like put some stuff in it and I don't know, centrifuge it. I don't know. And I think in many ways, if we can make technology so easy to use that we can try some of these things, and so you don't waste 3 to 5 years and your life savings on something, but you put something out there and you give it a good go. I mean, like The dirty secret of a lot of the successes I've been part of is that we knew pretty fast, like, these things kinda, like, worked. And I'm a little bit, like, startup promiscuous in the sense of, like, I try a lot of different stuff, and if it doesn't work, I'm like, "Mm, not for me," and then I know there's other people that, like, grind it out, and they spend 10 years doing it, and suddenly it works, and I have the deepest
Right,
respect for
you're
that.
talking to that person, yes. I mean,
Or
sometimes I
like
feel
when,
like I
like, I'm all like,
yeah.
"Hey, what do you guys think about this?" And then, like, crickets and going, "Okay, not that." Then I come back and then, "What about this thing then?" And so I think failure rate might be high, but I think if we can reduce the cost of trying, then I think we're in a good chance. And honestly, we can help people figure out that the idea just isn't that good or doesn't resonate right now, or the timing is wrong, and we can save them from what I've also done, spending years and years on this thing that never flies. I think we're doing something good.
I agree when we talk about mental health and being able to empower entrepreneurs, it means helping with them with their businesses, making it more accessible, sustainable, and then also getting to a clear path towards is this going to work or not so people could move on with their lives.
Yeah.
Right? And move on to the next thing because I do agree, like, that process is freaking soul draining, and, like and why should we go through it? I mean, also it creates resilience and all these things.
Like, I have the
It
deepest respect for people that do it, like, don't get me wrong. I mean,
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
I love that people do that, and you can't just give up, like, at the first kinda, like, somebody goes like, "Oh, this is lame," because people will say that, of course, but I do think that we can make it easier to try, and I think we make it easier to try, then we can more people try, and I think a world where there's more entrepreneurs is a better world, and, I think our attempt is one. I'm sure there's gonna be more people coming up with different ways of doing this, and for me, the more the merrier.
So, let's get into your book, which in many ways kind of covers some of the stuff we've been talking about. It's called Me, My Customer, and AI, out August 5th. You can pre-order it now.
Please pre-order
You've
it.
said this isn't just another AI or entrepreneurship book, it's a playbook. Yeah, let's talk about that. What type of playbook? What's the biggest mindset shift you want readers to walk away with?
Well, I think a lot of it we covered, right? One is that there'll be a new type of entrepreneur out there that basically the non-technical founder can go out there. And the second is that we should start to look at how do we build new type of businesses. People should do unicorns all day long, go, 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 go. But I think everybody who have this idea that they might build something that is not unicorn with all what that entails, there'll be these new type of businesses available to them. And the third thing is this relationship capital. Like, what is it? How do you solve identify? How do you build a moat to a customer base? And so the book goes through kind of like these three mental models, and talks about it sucks that frameworks and all those different things that we've been using ourselves. And so in many ways, it's kind of like it's the user manual that we gave the agents, but just written up in a book form so that people can consume them.
I mean, it's a great way to get the information in your brain. Supposedly, using AI, we forget things. So we clearly need to be reading things still.
We tried to write the book with AI. We were, like, convinced that we had all these white papers internally, and we were like, "Here you go, just write the book." And, it was very complicated. We had to give up at the end. I'm sure you'll be able to write books, soon, but, like, this one we had to kinda, like, grind out.
Yeah, and for the people, like, on the other side, like, let's not forget the importance of I do believe reading something and how you process it when you read it in your hands or, I don't know,
I was
maybe you
even like
have your,
I did the
user
audiobook
eye.
earlier today, and it
Yeah.
was miserable to make the audiobook. Like, I
Oh,
don't
yeah, you could use AI for that probably in the future
Exactly,
or
but you
things
know
like
what?
that,
I thought
but
that was the whole like, that would dismiss the whole point of the book. The whole point is that I'm trying to create a relationship with people who want to do this,
true.
and then I have to make that effort, and of course, I could use AI, and I've done that, and it actually sounds pretty well. It's probably much better than having me with my Danish accent kinda, like, trying to do it. But then, like, all the subtleties and kind of how I felt when I wrote it together with my co-author, Nicholas, wouldn't come through. And so it was important that you made that effort, even though it was horrible to do.
I'm sure it ended up being great. Did AI help you create the phrase "donkey corn" or was that from you?
That was my business partner, Nicholas, who came up with that. I'm not quite sure how he did it, but, I've used it so much that I get credit for it now, so, but in full disclosure, he was the one who came up with it. I don't think he did, but
Yeah.
I will say Midjourney and all these other models now, when you say, like, a donkey with a party hat on, like, it is just incredible how, what it spits out, and so, yeah, no, I don't think it did the word, but it definitely done a lot of the imagery that we have on it.
I mean, it's a cool phrase, it definitely makes sense of, like, how to look at these things differently, and I think we're looking for new mental models right now and business models, to figure out where this goes, where we go in the future. So you had some pretty amazing folks that, backed this book. You got your friends to say nice things. What do you think like Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn, among many other things, Shopify's Harley Finkelstein, as I mentioned. What do you think resonated with them?
I think in many ways that it's a positive take on what AI can do, and I think a lot of those folks kind of, like, really are thinking about how can we use AI to get entrepreneurship to more people, and so I think the positive kind of approach and the democratization of entrepreneurship was something that resonated with them.
And I know that all of this is helping us create better ideas and create better businesses, right? But how important is mindset in this and our mental health? We kind of touched on it.
I think mindset is kinda like what entrepreneurship really is, right? I look at 3 things normally when I kind of, like, evaluate entrepreneurs, and honestly, our system does a lot of the investing on our behalf, and so we have to try to codify these things also. And some of the attributes that we are looking at is, what I call agitation, which is basically how much kind of, like, forward motion do you have? Like, do you propel stuff? Like, are you the type, like, that kind of come back to the agent and go like, "Hey, you said it'll come in 2 minutes. Why it's not there yet?" We do a lot of what we call gravity or the ability to tell a story in a compelling way. Can you get people to kind of like, follow you? Not as kind of like blind kind of influencers, but like, are you one of those community managers that resonate with people? And then we like generalists. Like, are you pretty versatile? Are you somebody that will you have a point of view and a vocabulary to describe why you don't need a like this logo, over to how do you think that we can make the agent talk in a more human way to some of the customers you serve, to what should your domain and the name a company be, and all those different things. And so we look at some of these, I would say, soft values as character traits that help us figure out who might be somebody who has a better chance than not to make something happen. I think the other
You
thing you
talked,
mentioned is about mental
yeah, you
health.
talked about soft values and people say soft skills, which I thought was interesting.
Hmm. I think those are intertwined, right? Like, maybe values are kinda like your the way that you see the world, and the skills are kind of how you apply them. But I think your mental health question is good. I think a lot of us, like, have been through, COVID and all these different things that made, like, life a little bit kind of frustrating. But I'm not sure I'm the only one, but I'm a little bit tired of kinda being in defense. Like, I kinda want back into the headspace of abundance and kind of like, let's just do stuff. And I think if I can't save the world, what I might be able to do is to help people kinda, like, solve something for a smaller group of people, and if you can accumulate all those different ones, like, you could probably make a relatively large impact. And so I hope other people kinda, like, just goes like, "Oh, like, yeah, the world is burning, but maybe we can make a, business around, preparing yourself for the next fires," or whatever it could be, right? And then you can take something good of the
I
demise.
know someone doing that right now, oddly.
It's a great idea. I mean,
Anyway,
like, we all need, like, warning system. I'm sure, like, people who lived through that, like, it was probably incredibly horrible, but, they know much more than people that haven't been through it.
yeah. Well, Henrik, this is such a refreshing take. We talk about what you could do now, on a lot of my shows, and it is learn, play, try. AI is not going anywhere, right? The train has left the station, and I feel like while that is helpful, what you're doing really takes it to the next level because it's really the action and how we could work with AI to build the next thing to support ourselves and make money and thrive, right? It's like it's a very clear path to that, which is just I think really important right now and what people need to hear.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that.
Well, thank you for being here. That is it. Any last takeaways or anything you want to share before we go?
No, I think we've been through quite a lot of it. I mean, like, I'm, as you can hear, is one of I haven't really spent that much time talking about this. It's been in Nicholas and my head for a while, and so, it's kind of very refreshing coming out and talking about it and hearing what questions you get back, and so I really, really appreciate spending time on it.
Well, you're great. I had more, but we have to wrap this. And so hopefully, you're watching, you're listening, you got something out of it. I know I did. You can go and check out autos.com now, start your journey, build your next great donkey corn company. Also, you can pre order Me, My Customer in AI. Link is in the show notes. Henrik, thank you again.
Thank you so much.
And thanks to all of you for joining us today on the show. I really loved learning with all of you. Thanks again to our series sponsor, Hivelater. You've got to check out the AI Download Collection. We've curated all the top headlines from our show, so it's really easy to read more about these stories so you can keep up and, of course, share them. Click the Hivelater link in our show notes to get smarter. Thank you so much to Muso Media for producing and editing the series. Check them out at musomedia.com. If you love this episode, what do you got to do? You got to subscribe, rate, and share it. It helps me keep growing the show independently. We've got so much more coming your way. I'm Cheryl Lazar, so we will see you next time on the AI Download. Thank you.